Welcome back to the Arsenal Transfer Room here on the RoryTalksFootball YouTube channel. It is a Sunday. It is disgracefully hot, and we are going to be talking about Ekitike, this report that has come out today from Germany. We're also going to be discussing the latest from Fabrizio Romano on Christian Mosquera, and we're going to be talking about the dangerous game that Sporting Lisbon are currently playing as their president has made yet more comments about the Victor Gyökeres situation. But before we get into that, if I could just ask you to subscribe down below, it is free, and we are on the way to 20,000 subscribers. We are less than 400 away now, and if you could like the video, I would be massively, massively grateful. But look, let's get into this Ekitike news. First things first, this has come from Bild today. Arsenal are seriously considering signing Ekitike. The intense interest from Liverpool, Manchester United, and Chelsea is well known, but Arsenal are now competing strongly. My immediate reaction to this is that is a message from Arsenal to RB Leipzig. This is a message to RB Leipzig. Hurry up with Benjamin Sesko, or we will move on. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe there is genuine interest in Ekitike. Maybe we are beginning to look at alternative options to Sesko or Gyökeres because of the way Leipzig and Sporting are negotiating for it. But my gut reaction to this, and Bild are a hit and miss source, my gut reaction was that this is just another part of the game to try and hurry Leipzig along and lower the price for Benjamin Sesko. That said, let's talk about Ekitike. Although Frankfurt are demanding 100 million euros for Ekitike, they are willing to be flexible around the structure of the deal. Now, how flexible they'll be is going to be important because ultimately, if they're asking for 100 million euros, they are asking for more than we are currently willing to spend on Victor Gyökeres or on Benjamin Sesko. So I feel like 100 million euros is a lot. I feel like everyone knows that that is probably too much, and that is why, as of yet, none of the big clubs that are interested, Chelsea, Liverpool, have actually made a move to get the deal done. Now, if we were to pursue him, you know, it's an exciting prospect. 23 years old, just turned 23 years old. 15 goals and 8 assists in the Bundesliga last season. I mean, there it says his market value is 63 million, but he burst onto the scene last season with a really exceptionally good season for Frankfurt. And the greenery is there. You know, there is no doubting that the greenery is absolutely there. These are his per 90 stats in the Bundesliga last season. And you can see he ranks up there for goals, expected goals, actually underperformed on that. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. Non-penalty XG, very good as well. Averages over 4 shots per 90 minutes. And again, we are going to come back to that. And then when it comes to the passing, the creativity, you know, the way that he links up the game, because he often plays kind of drifting off that left-hand side. 0.28 assists per 90. That is decent. Pass accuracy isn't bad, given that he's often trying to pull some extravagant things off, trying to open up the game. And his cross accuracy, you know, chance creation is pretty damn good as well. But in terms of where he slightly concerns me, there's a couple of things. Firstly is that, like I said, last season was really his breakthrough season. You know, he'd been an up-and-coming prospect at PSG, but not really managed to find his footing there. And that doesn't necessarily mean too much. Other strikers have also struggled to find their footing at PSG in recent years. He goes to Frankfurt in the 23-24 season, 4 goals, 2 assists in 16 games. You know, it's all right, but it didn't blow anyone away. But last season, 22 goals and 12 assists in all competitions in 48 games. To compare that to Benjamin Sesko, Sesko did 21 goals and 6 assists in 45 games. So almost identical goals per game. But Ekitike was able to add more in terms of the assists. The other thing that concerns me a little bit is this. 15 goals in the Bundesliga came from 117 shots and 21.7 XG. This is a guy who had a huge number of opportunities last season, many of which, in fairness to him, he did create those opportunities for himself. But it does slightly concern me that my feeling when we sign a striker is that it needs to be someone I feel is clinical. It needs to be someone that in those games where we are struggling to find an opening against a really low block, I trust that they are going to take the 1 or 2 chances that they perhaps get. And that is where, and I've not watched a huge amount of Ekitike. obviously. I don't watch a huge amount of Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, right? But when I did watch him, was against Spurs in the Europa League. And the second leg in particular, where Spurs were really holding on and set up in a really sort of defensive low block, something more similar to what Arsenal come up against on a regular basis, I felt like Ekitike really actually struggled to get into the game. He is far better when there is space in the transition, when he is 1v1 against defenders, and you don't get that as much at Arsenal. So there are a couple of the concerns. Look, if we did decide to move on from Sesko and Gyökeres onto Ekitike, I would be all for it in terms of the excitement of it. The fact that Liverpool are interested in probably tells you that it wouldn't be a bad signing. But overall, for now, I would suggest that it is maybe just part of the Sesko Leipzig game. And we'll wait and see how that develops. Up next, on to Christian Mosquera. Obviously, we know we had the first official bid rejected, but Fabrizio Romano saying this today, Arsenal have reached full agreement on personal terms with Christian Mosquera. New proposals set to be submitted after the opening bid worth 14 million euros got rejected by Valencia. Arsenal hope to get the deal done for a fee in excess of 20 million euros. Talks are underway. Now, if we could get it done for that, 20 million euros, that's 16, 17 million pounds. I really do think that's a good addition. I was actually listening to Sami Mokbel, or it was a podcast that he was on where they were talking about the fact that Arsenal have been interested in Mosquera for 18 months. He's been on the radar of the recruitment team and the data team for 18 months. Now, that is something that I like. You know, that's the same team that wanted to go after Jurdy and Timber. And I do look at, you know, the defensive depth if he was to come in. And we showed this before. If you're looking at that kind of 2 per position formula, this is on the assumption that you sell Alexander Zinchenko and on the assumption that Tomiyasu is kind of largely unavailable, which is unfortunately what we do have to assume these days. You're still in a position, if you bring Mosquera in, where you have White and Timber, Mosquera, Saliba, Kivior, Gabriel, Calafiori, Lewis Skelly. And I think that is exceptional depth. And people may say that's too many, that's overkill. But you look last season, we had 9 defenders last season and still ended up at times with Thomas Partey playing at right back. And at the early in the season, if we look at how Lewis Skelly developed into the team, that was because we had to rely on an 18-year-old central midfielder to come into the team at left back. So, it's easy to say that that's too many, but we don't want to be left short again. And what I also love is the versatility that you've got there. Timber and White can both play at centre-back. Mosquera has played at right-back at times. Kivior, of course, has played at left-back. Calafiori, naturally, is a centre-back. Lewis Skelly can play in midfield. I like it. I really do think that ultimately that is the best defence and defensive depth in the Premier League, and for a fairly cheap price. It still allows us to go and spend significantly throughout the rest of July, of course, on that attack, which even from that graphic you can see is where we need to work. Next up, the games that Sporting Lisbon are playing when it comes to Victor Gyökeres. We've had our frustrations with Leipzig, but they are there with Sporting too. So Sporting President Varandas again coming out today on Victor Gyökeres saying, I'm not going to say what the price is. The player knows what it is. I can tell you Victor won't leave for 60 million euros plus 10. He won't. He just won't. He went on to say Sporting doesn't need to sell Victor Gyökeres. Fortunately, we're past the stage of selling our main asset, but we're still sensitive to the dreams of Victor or any other player. Sporting has a compromise in which, after weeks of meetings, it's not asking for the value of the clause, but it is going to be reasonable. Now, I would argue that they do need to sell Victor Gyökeres. He is a player of an age that a team like Sporting, as sad as it is, they fundamentally cannot afford to not sell Victor Gyökeres this summer. The way that I think his value would plummet over the next season because of his age at this point, I just think they can't afford to do it. And the reason that I think they are playing a much riskier game than Leipzig are with Benjamin Sesko is that Arsenal's preference, quite clearly, I think at this point, is Benjamin Sesko. And so really, if Sporting want to be in this game, and they may feel that Manchester United could still come back into the fray, but you don't know that they've got the money to do that, especially having done Cunha and Brian and Mbeumo, and with Xerxes and Højlund. There's no guarantee that they really do put down more money than Arsenal are willing to offer for Victor Gyökeres. And there's a very distinct possibility that Arsenal end up finishing and completing on Benjamin Sesko. And then suddenly they're in a position where I don't think anyone would come back in for more than perhaps Arsenal have offered. I do think 60 million euros plus 10 million in add-ons for a player of Gyökeres' age who doesn't have the big league experience yet, I do think that's a fair price. I don't think they can reasonably demand more than that, as good as his goal scoring in Portugal has been. And so it's going to be really interesting. Like, I really do think, we're 2 days away from the start of July now. I really think it's going to start ramping up. We've just seen Gittins moving to Chelsea. Again, that move happens. Suddenly, Garnacho to Chelsea is not available. United have to start looking at alternatives there. Like, so much is going to happen. And I'm excited for it. Now, again, I have to say, if you are still here and you're of the opinion that we're going for Mosquera instead of a striker, I've seen this again today. Excuse me. People convincing themselves that Arsenal are going after Mosquera instead of Sesko or a striker. It's crazy. For one final time before I die, which apparently is happening right now. It's making me cry. No, it's not. But for one final time, the order in which you do your transfers does not indicate the priority of your transfers. Mosquera is easier to do than Sesko. I am literally going to die. So we are going to end the video there. I don't think there will be any content tomorrow. Unfortunately, I'm out all day. Maybe some in the evening if I can. But if you are new, like I said, please do subscribe. Please do click that like button. There is pretty much daily content, either live streams or videos. Click the notification bell. You can join the Discord down in the description so that you can chat to other Arsenal fans, like-minded Arsenal fans of this channel, of this community, a community that is growing exceptionally well over the course of this summer. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Enjoy your Monday, the start of a new week. If you're in the UK, you're dealing with this temperature. It's tough. It is tough. But look, other than that, I appreciate you all watching. I will catch you all on the next one. But until then, goodbye.